Appearing on Stephen Colbert's show, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called on the president to make several moves and called on to Congress to codify many progressive positions. In the midst of the conversation, Stephen Colbert gleefully presses Ocasio-Cortez on whether she'll run for president in 2024, which is a hilarious prospect. Not so much because of AOC, but because of Joe Biden. You see, over the New York Times, they have an article titled, "Biden Irked by Democrats Who Won't Take Yes for an Answer on 2024. The White House is trying to tamp down speculation about plans to seek re-election, while aides say President Biden is bristling at the persistent questions." No matter how many times Joe Biden comes out and says, "I'm going to run for a second term," Democrats respond by going, yeah, okay, Grandpa. So who can we get to run in 2024? And Biden can't stand it. Biden, maybe you should see the writing on the wall. They don't want you. Your brain does not work. And I'm tired of being nice about it, okay? We all know when the guy comes out and says, Trinidad Shabbat pressure, bad calf care, next now recent. These aren't words. The guy can't even read the teleprompter. Biden, you need to see the writing on the wall. They are going to replace you in 2024. CNN's Chris Cillizza roasted for touting Hillary Clinton in 2024, and The Hill has 5 under-the-radar Democrats who could run for president in 2024. Yes. And on primetime television, to millions of viewers, Stephen Colbert asks AOC whether she will run. You know what? I thought about it. It actually might be AOC. No, seriously. I mean, she's got a very high Q rating, as it were. I mean, not literal, probably actually, but I mean, in terms of her favorability among Democrats, AOC is particularly high. She's youthful, she's exuberant, and she's progressive. And many on the left might actually support her because she's not quite the far left you'd expect. She's not Antifa, Socialist Rifle Association left. She's Democratic Socialist, but, will probably come out with liberals opposing guns and doing all the typical liberal things. In terms of youthful exuberance, it's got to be AOC. I mean, let's be real. Who else could they even run if they wanted to? The best bet probably would be Michelle Obama, but I don't know if she'd do it. Hillary Clinton is being roasted because apparently a former aide is saying her ratings are lower than Trump's, which is why Trump won in the first place. Now, I don't know if it would be AOC, and it does seem like a long shot, but I got to be honest. Just sit and think about it. Name any Democrat who could possibly win. Yeah, AOC probably can't, but more so than anyone else. I mean, what do you get, Pete Buttigieg? Nah, that guy's a D-lister. I mean, they put him in the administration, but what does he really have to offer? Speaking on Colbert's show, AOC made some grand nonsense in her statements about what should be done and why it should be done. Speaking about Abraham Lincoln and saying things that are just factually incorrect and that make no sense. And they show that AOC has not even bothered to Google search history. But I will add, she also called on Biden to do things that she says Abraham Lincoln did these things, which exacerbated the Civil War. And Joe Biden should do the same things. It seems kind of like a crazy thing to say. Abraham Lincoln did things that exacerbated the Civil War. Okay, I'll put it this way. We're glad Abraham Lincoln did what he did and won. We're sad that a Civil War happened, but it needed to. I mean, we needed to end slavery, and the South was seceding, so what do you do? So you had the moral conflict over ending slavery, and you had the political conflict over the Union. AOC is now calling on Joe Biden to take actions which seem to insinuate a civil war is coming. I love to say the word civil war, not that I want one to happen, because people don't understand. When AOC calls for these things, the reason why I would say you shouldn't do them is because war is not what you think it will be. It is not like a movie. It is torturous. It is terrifying. And the people who are advocating for these things probably have never seen a loved one grievously injured, let alone a stranger. I've seen people die before my very eyes, and you get a feeling that is indescribable, or at least I did. I don't know how you feel. Some people probably don't feel anything. I saw someone seriously injured in a car accident happen right in front of me. Very serious injuries I cannot describe because it'd probably be too upsetting to people. And it gave me a feeling I could not describe. So, if you're concerned about the conflict in this country, I will never support policy that would push us towards or escalate civil war. You don't want it. That's why it's crazy that the AOC acknowledges that's what Abraham Lincoln did, and we should do it too. Because I'm just like, man, maybe there are things that need to be done for the greater good, but if it in any way leads to war, I couldn't advocate for it. One of my favorite movies of all time, The Patriot, which I often mention on Timcast IRL. The main character, Mel Gibson, he says, if you ask me, should we be independent from the crown? I say yes. If you believe that we should not have taxation without representation, I say yes. But if that means going to war, I say no. And therein lies the real challenge. The people who lust for violence or don't care when it comes. Let's read the story and go through exactly what's going on. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com, click that sign up button in the top right, and become a member to support our work. We need your support. It's how we fund the operation. It's how we keep these journalists employed. And you'll get access to exclusive segments from the Timcast IRL podcast. It's the Timcast After Dark, uncensored, not very family-friendly versions of the show with our guests, and it's a huge library of these interviews. Rather topical, but still worth listening to in many respects. You'll also be supporting the infrastructure we use because we are using companies like Rumble that are more resilient to censorship to support this alternate ecosystem. So don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share this video wherever you can. Let's read the first story from Mediaite. Colbert gleefully presses AOC on whether she'll run for president in 2024. Comedian Colbert asked Rep. Alexandria Ocasio Cortez on Tuesday if she'll run for president in 24. Quote, "You know, there's some speculation as to whether President Joe Biden is going to run in 2024. There's some reports that he's a little frustrated that people keep asking because he keeps saying yes, and people go, are you sure? Are you sure? Poor Biden. I shouldn't say poor Biden because he's a crackpot, corrupt lunatic. He's filthy, and so is his son. But I'm just imagining this doddering old fool being like, I'm going to run in 2024. And they're like, oh, okay, Grandpa. So who should we get to run in 2024? And he's like, brr. Theoretically, here we go. He says, I know somebody's going to turn 35 about a month before the election in 24. And they represent New York's 14th congressional district. Is that job appealing to you at all? And she says, theoretically, Colbert added. Cortez did not close the door. She said, I think we need to focus on keeping a democracy for anybody to be president in the next couple of years. And that's my central focus in helping the people of this country. So it's possible, asked Colbert. So it's possible. I don't know about all that, replied AOC. I'm just here to get you in a little trouble, joked Colbert. You're getting me in trouble, said AOC. I don't know about all of that. So funny. I don't think AOC could be president. She is too young. You need a little bit more behind you. 35, but she's got more pizzazz and X factor behind her than any other Democrat save Michelle Obama. Not that I think Michelle Obama could win at this point. People are just going to be voting against the Democrats. They're going to be looking at exactly what's going on with gas prices and inflation. They're going to be like, dude, I don't care if you're the Pope. If you run as a Democrat, you ain't getting my vote. Well, to be honest, the Pope would never run as a Democrat because a Democrat would never vote for a Pope, but you get the point. They're not going to care if you're the biggest name in the world. The Democrats have let them down. Now, I'd like to talk to you about our good friend Joe Biden and him being irked. Before I do, I want to address some points about what's happening in this country and why Joe Biden probably won't be running for president in 2024. So speaking on Colbert's show, AOC made several points. This from AOC is how Democrats should be talking about SCOTUS. The Supreme Court has engaged in overreach, and it is the responsibility of the president and Congress to put them in check because they have delegitimized themselves. These are the kind of things you need to pay attention to. When Stephen Colbert says, do you want to run for president? And then the person he just asked can't string together a coherent historical precedent. Well, she can't string together a sentence referencing facts. The Supreme Court is engaged in overreach. How is that? She's calling on the federal government to put a check on the Supreme Court. Why? Because they rescinded their own authority. That's it. Let's talk about Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court said that the federal government does not have the authority as it stands to mandate the states do anything, and it's going to be up to the states to pass this, or Congress. Congress could pass a law codifying Roe v. Wade, but as it stands, the Supreme Court does not have the constitutional authority to rule on the matter. AOC said it's overreach. Since when is it overreach to be like, yo, I don't have the power, I'm out, I'm stepping back? It's because AOC, like many of the left, has embraced fascistic tenets. As the late David Graeber said, elements of the left have taken on fascistic, not fascism, but fascistic philosophies. There is no truth but power. The idea among AOC men on the left is that the federal government should assert more authority over how the government is run. Meanwhile, SCOTUS just said, we don't have the authority and we're backing off. I want to show you this. Actions AOC recommends Congress and President Biden take. Entertain expansion of SCOTUS. That's insane. End the Senate filibuster. I think that's wrong. Repeal the Hyde Amendment. That's political. Codify Roe, same-sex marriage, right to contraception, and interracial marriage. Interracial marriage is not a substantive due process question like these other ones, so that's a bit silly. That one's more of a equality under the law as it exists with marriage. So same-sex marriage is relatively different and relies on other precedent that does rely on substantive due process. However, fine, whatever. Codify those things by all means. In this video, so first let me address this. The expansion of SCOTUS is based on the idea of the districts in the United States and that there should be a judge for each district, federal districts. And because we've expanded the districts, we should, I think they want to add 5 more, or is it four more? I think I'm not entirely sure. Right now, there's like a few justices that handle a few districts versus just one. So, okay, there's an argument to be made, but I don't think you can just do that because you're losing. Ending the filibuster is a mistake because the filibuster is a check on majoritarian rule. Now, the left wants that. They want to say, we got one extra vote, crush them. I think it's a bad idea. I think a democracy is 2 wolves and a lamb deciding on what's for lunch, and a republic is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. And thus, you have the option for certain jurisdictions to be protected. When it comes to the Senate, we're talking about state representation, not people. That's the House. So, smaller states wanted protections. They said, why should we join your union if New York City is just going to crush us? And they said, we'll give your state the ability to add, 2 senators per state. And thus, you want to make the argument left? Sure. Then Rhode Island and Delaware should be merged into their surrounding states. Rhode Island becomes Massachusetts and Delaware becomes Maryland because these states are microscopic. Rhode Island, I think, is like 37 miles by 48 miles. It's microscopic. And Delaware, I think, is like 30 by 90. But they get 2 senators? They're just basically cities. It's Providence and Wilmington. No, but okay, they're states, and because this is the way things are, it's the way things are. And populations shift. We respect they'll get senators. Then you have smaller states, you have larger states that are less populous. No, the Senate filibuster is actually a good thing. The Hyde Amendment, you're talking about politics. The Hyde Amendment bars the federal government from funding abortion. You want to repeal that? Fine. Win your elections. Make the moves. Codifying these things, Roe and same-sex marriage. All right. That's going to rely on Congress. But I want to point out some factual issues. I'm going to play this video, which I actually don't think the audio is coming through properly, but we'll play it. So Colbert is asking about abortion and blah, blah, blah. AOC says, in the 1800s, the Supreme Court was taken over by the Confederate South. It was starting to rule in ways that limited Abraham Lincoln. Okay, carry on, AOC. In the Dred Scott ruling, they ruled that Black Americans could never be full citizens. Well, she's correct about that part. And what did Abraham Lincoln do? He signed the Emancipation Proclamation. That is so mind-bogglingly insane. AOC went on Colbert and just sputtered buzzword garbage that made literally no sense. All right. The reason I bring this up is because she's got 13 million followers. Because Colbert just asked if she'd run for office and she did not say no, and there's a possibility. But let me just help y'all out. AOC was correct about Dred Scott. Dred Scott was a ruling that said the Constitution was not for descendants of Africa. However, Dred Scott was a ruling from 1857, 4 years before Abraham Lincoln became president. So no, the Supreme Court was not ruling in ways that was screwing with Abraham Lincoln, who was not president at the time. More importantly, Abraham Lincoln became president after secession. Oh, man. Now, I know many people point out Abraham Lincoln's victory in the election triggered much of secession because he was opposed to slavery. So many of these states seceded before Abraham Lincoln was president. He enters the presidency when there were already states that had left the Union. AOC has no idea what she's talking about. And then here's the best part. She's like, the Supreme Court was taken over by the Confederacy and ruling in ways that was inhibiting Abraham Lincoln. And so what did he do? He passed the Emancipation Proclamation. Yo, what? The states seceded before Abraham Lincoln was president. Dred Scott happened 4 years before he was president. So he wasn't even running for office at the time. And then the Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order issued on January 1st, 1863, 2 years after he became president. The Dred Scott ruling was 6 years before the Emancipation Proclamation. Oh, AOC, read a book. I just pulled up Wikipedia, not even the best source of things. Remarkable. And then she comes out and she says that Joe Biden should do similar things. Okay, you were wrong about what happened with the Civil War. You have no idea what you're talking about, but here we are. Okay. Please do not entertain President AOC. She is not learned, not read, and doesn't know what she's talking about. She's a hypocrite and she flip-flops. And I'm not saying vote for Donald Trump. No, there's many people who are better than her, but seriously, I just couldn't help it. I've been reading so much about the Civil War that when I saw this, I was just like, oh, heavens help me. This makes literally no sense. Abraham Lincoln, as president, traveled back in time to complain about Dred Scott because it was a ruling that inhibited his future. What? I'm just so tired of all of this. I have to be completely honest. And here we go. Oh, poor Sleepy Joe. No matter how many times he says he's going to run, they just say, yeah, okay, Grandpa. Earlier this month, when Senator Bernie Sanders said he would not challenge Biden in 2024, Mr. Biden was so relieved he invited his former rival to dinner. Biden was eager for signs of loyalty, and they have been few and far between. Facing intensifying skepticism about his capacity to run for re-election, when he will be nearly 82 years old, the president and his top aides have been stung by the question about his plans. Irritated at what they see as a lack of respect from their party in the press, and determined to tamp down suggestions that he's effectively a lame duck a year and a half into his administration. He is. Biden's brain is not there. It is damaged, okay? And I'm not trying to be a mean person to the man, but Democrats are outright concerned about his cognitive abilities and his age. The dude's got metal plates. Like he has like metal plates in his brain or something. Look at this. Mr. Biden isn't just intending to run, his aides argue, but he's also laying the groundwork by building resources, the DNC, restocking his operation in battleground states, and looking to use his influence to shape the nomination process in his favor. Sure, play that game. Take a look at this. CNN's Chris Cillizza roasted for touting Hillary Clinton in 2024. Oh, no. Joe Biden can say it over and over again. But people are so unwilling to believe that he would and could run that CNN actually wrote an article that said it's Hillary Clinton. Now is her time. No, I'm sorry. It isn't. Don't believe me? Fox News reports. Former Hillary Clinton campaign strategist says she shouldn't run in 2024. Her ratings are below Trump's. Yeah, Clinton denies having any plan to get back into politics. And Mark Penn, her 2008 campaign strategist, tells Fox News it wouldn't be a good idea. I don't think the country wants to go back to candidates who have run before, whether that is Hillary, Biden, or Trump. Clinton's national ratings are below Trump's at this point. You want to know just how bad it really is? Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Real Clear Politics, the RCP President Biden job approval average. Today, in aggregate, Joe Biden's approval is at 38%. He is underwater nearly 20 points. 57.5% aggregate disapproval to 38% aggregate approval. This is not a single poll. It's all of them. The thing that's really interesting to me the most is that Trafalgar Group and Quinnipiac have Joe Biden's approval at 35, and Rasmussen has him at 39. Rasmussen typically shows the Democrats in a less favorable light polling-wise, and right now Trafalgar and Quinnipiac have Joe Biden lower than Rasmussen. Let me tell you why this matters. Because you jump over to Donald Trump's aggregate job approval rating, and we can see right before January 6th, or just about on, Donald Trump's approval was 44.2. And after the news broke, it dropped down to 39.3. That is to say, the lowest point in Donald Trump's presidency in his last few months, following the most egregious moment, so say of Democrats, was 39.3. Now, Donald Trump's lowest point period was 37.1, December 16th, 2017. So, okay, he's been lower than Joe. But the Democrats are heavily banking on January 6th. They're claiming insurrection. They're saying, oh man, look at what's going on right now with these hearings and Cassidy Hutchinson. I need y'all to understand, the day after this happened, the days following this, Donald Trump's aggregate approval was still higher than Joe Biden's. In fact, Rasmussen had Trump at 51% on January 14th. Economist, 44%. These are all well past January 6th. Now, to be fair, CNN and Quinnipiac had him at 34, and that's in the days after the January 6th incident. So this is where we're at. Joe Biden has a lower approval rating than Trump did at seemingly the worst point in his presidency. Now, granted, Trump had a lower point, but I mean January 6th is what they're highlighting as like the worst point of his administration. And then we can talk about what the Democrats are doing. From the Colorado Sun, Joe O'Dea beats Ron Hanks in Colorado's Republican U.S. Senate primary. O'Dea, a first-time candidate, overcame millions of dollars in Democratic spending to aid his primary opponent. Oh, Democrats, no! The Democrats were funding what they said was the far right, pumping money into the campaign of Ron Hanks, and he lost. Talk about miserable, psychotic strategy. The Democrats have lost their minds. It's backfiring miserably. First-time candidate Joe O'Dea secured the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate in Colorado, despite the Democrats spending to aid his opponent. O'Dea, who owns a Denver construction company, had 55% of the vote compared to the 45% of the vote that went to Hanks as of 2 a.m. Wednesday. Votes were still being counted, but it was clear that O'Dea had cruised to victory and will face the Democratic U.S. Senator Michael Bennet in November. I won't vote for the party line, O'Dea said in a victory speech. I'll be more like a Republican Joe Manchin. I will always put America and Colorado first. I respect it. I think we need more moderates. I just think just don't vote with Democrats. Don't give them what they want and stop cooperating with them. Cooperate with the American people. Well, let's pull a Breitbart. Trump-endorsed candidates remain on fire after going perfect 12-0 in Tuesday's primaries. You mean Donald Trump didn't endorse Ron Hanks? Or is this, did he not endorse either? They say in Colorado, Trump endorsed Lauren Boebert, who won. With 90% of the votes reporting, she got 64.2%. All four candidates who earned Trump's nod in Illinois took home their nominations, with State Senator Darren Bailey securing the GOP nomination for governor in the Prairie State. That's interesting. I guess he didn't make an endorsement in Colorado. He's making safe bets. It was a similar story in Oklahoma. Blah, blah, blah. We get it. He won. Last week, Trump Republicans were perfect in both Virginia and Alabama, but ran into trouble in Georgia. So this we know. Georgia's interesting. I think that what we're seeing with Georgia is that people want moderates. They like the idea that someone stood up to Trump. In these other states, they're just saying, I don't care, dude. I don't want the Democrats. We need to change because things are getting worse. Now, maybe it'll be, maybe the Democrats will put in AOC, and then the party just implodes. You know, look, I know they're entertaining AOC. I don't think it will be AOC because I really doubt she can get enough support in this country to actually pull it off. I just don't see it. But you look at everyone else they have, who could beat her? In the Democratic ticket, she'd end up winning and then losing miserably. But I guess we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll tell you what's really going on. I'll tell you why people are mad. You know, TimCast.com reports, U.S. power companies face shortages and outages this summer. Yeah, it's an energy crisis. We've got high heat heading our way. And so there's a concern that people are going to be pumping their air conditioning to the point where the grid is strained. Gas prices are through the roof. Biden and Democrats are saying buy electric cars. So what's going to happen? The more electric cars get put on the grid, the more strain the grid gets. The grid's already strained, and then power outages. WFLI says a report from the North American Electric Reliability Corporation indicates parts of the country, including Indiana, are at high risk of overloading the region's electrical grid. Over at our new HQ, we have installed solar panels and massive batteries that can run for days. We don't have to worry about the power going out. At our current facility, we do. And if it gets too hot and the power goes out, we're in trouble. So for the time being, the challenge we have is that our West Virginia facility doesn't yet have internet installed. We do have Starlink, which means we can do our live shows at 480p, no problem, via Starlink. That's cool. And imagine there may be some hiccups with, clouds and stuff like that. We also have 2 Starlinks we could potentially bond internet. And we do actually have a local cellular network internet point-to-point system, but we don't have the high-speed stuff. If things get really bad, we could set up a makeshift studio and work through the energy outages and everything like that, keep the show going. Why are we planning for this? Because we know that Joe Biden's policies have spiked energy in this country. And so months ago, we started saying, let's get ready for energy shortages. I'm glad I thought ahead. How many of you thought ahead? How many of you thought so far ahead you voted for Donald Trump? Exactly. But it's not just about energy. While I do think it's the economy, stupid, and gas prices are hurting people and power outages are going to shock people, we also got to talk about the culture war. TimCast.com reporting Loudoun schools sued for moral corruption of children, deliberate, almost gleeful violation of parental rights. A lawsuit has been filed against Loudoun County Public Schools on behalf of 11 parents alleging deliberate, egregious, and systemic violation of parents' rights. The people in Loudoun County, these are not Republicans. It's like a mixed area. It's a DC suburb. These people are probably normies. They've had enough. The suburban moms voted for Glenn Youngkin, a Republican. 1 million Democrat voters switched parties. CNN ran an analysis showing something's changing. These people are joining in the Republican primary because they're fired up and they don't want to vote Democrat. So please, try everything you can. Colbert, bring out AOC to speak nonsense about the Civil War, to call on Biden to enact policies that happened during the Civil War because of her ridiculous understanding of what actually happened. And you're going to see Republicans sweep. I will say this, as I said it last night in Timcast IRL. We're winning, and we're going to win. Freedom, liberty, personal responsibility. I don't necessarily think religion outright, but I do believe a somewhat more Christian moral framework. Excuse me. I should get water when I do these. Here's what I think is going to happen. You've probably heard me talk about Thucydides' trap, that when a rising economic power is about to displace a dominant power, war breaks out. I think there's a microcosm of that happening here in the United States. We have the parallel economy emerging. We have a constitutional republic seeking to survive. And then you have what the left describes as a new multicultural democracy begging to be born. But here's what I see. Freedom, personal responsibility, liberty, and what we believe in is winning. We are displacing the establishment and their goals. At a certain point, as the parallel economy expands and new platforms and new infrastructure like Rumble emerges, eventually you will have economic displacement. Internally, we may be facing our own Thucydides trap. As the parallel economy grows, and we displace the establishment, perhaps war is inevitable. But guess what? We win. I don't want there to be conflict or war, and neither do you. No one should. And anybody advocating for it is insane. They don't get it. The Civil War was one of the bloodiest wars ever fought, and it was nightmarish. Nobody thought it could happen because they were arrogant, but then it did, and it was nightmarish. And this is where we go now. If AOC really is advocating that Biden do things that Lincoln did, because the Civil War was, because the Confederacy was dominating the Supreme Court. Yeah, Abraham Lincoln tried to arrest a justice. I think they expelled one. I'm not sure. The federal government arrested members of Maryland's General Assembly. It's just bonkers. It's insane. You know, we don't want this. We don't want fighting. But it seems like it may be inevitable. So we have to resist. But how do you do it when one side will lie, cheat, and steal and prop up the dumbest people on TV and beg they become president when they don't even know basic history? That AOC is a rep is terrifying. That her vote is the same as yours. Someone who doesn't know what this country is founded upon, doesn't even understand basic history, negates your vote. That's reality of first past the post. It's reality of voting. So we need a more educated public. We need you to share videos like this. We need you to challenge even what I say and educate yourselves. And maybe then we can get members of the public to better understand and say we reject your broken ideas. And maybe if there was a powerful awakening, we would avoid major conflict. If everyone just says, I walk away from you, then there wouldn't need to be a conflict. Maybe then the establishment, the neocons, the neolibs can just back down and say, we give up. And they should. For the time being, it just seems like things are escalating. Well, at least I can say it doesn't seem like Joe Biden will be running for president no matter what he says. So I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.